It's about 80 days to the general elections in Nigeria when millions of voters will choose the new leader. They will also elect new or sustain their choices in other public service positions. Now, Nigeria's voter population of over 84 million means the elections management body, the Independent National Electoral Commission, mostly referred to as INEC, has an arduous task on its hands. As the country nears the February 25th, 2023 elections, INEC is worried about attacks on its facilities, especially those that have occurred in the last 4 months. So far, INEC offices in 5 states have been ransacked and/or set ablaze. This has resulted in the loss of important logistics and voter materials needed for the elections that's barely 2 months away. The last known incident took place on December 1st at an INEC office in Olu local government area in Imo State. Police have since been investigating that incident. Today on The Square, we want to discuss those attacks, their impact on INEC's work towards the elections, and the West African country's general preparedness for the elections. Thank you so much for joining our gathering today. I am Keminni Amanor. Festus Okoye is Commissioner for Information and Voter Education at INEC. And then there is Charles Thomas. He's a political analyst. They are my guests today. Gentlemen, you're welcome to The Square.
Thank you so much.
Great. So what we're going to do now, and Charles, we will be talking to Festus. You're listening to the conversation, and then we'll speak to you after that. So Festus, you're first on the radar today. Where is Nigeria in its preparation for the elections?
We are preparing, and we are preparing well. If you recall, on the 26th day of February 2022, the Commission released the timetable and schedule of activities for the conduct of the election. And we listed 14 critical and fundamental items in that particular timetable and schedule of activities. And out of that 14, we have already accomplished 9 of those items. So in terms of our preparations, we are preparing, and we are preparing well, and we don't have any serious challenges as of today.
Talk to us about those 9 points that you spoke about.
Well, the part of our timetable relates to the issuing of notice for the conduct of elections. It had something to do with the conduct of party primaries. It had something to do with the nomination of candidates, the publication of the final list of duly nominated candidates. So all these ones have already been accomplished. And then we are now at the stage of political campaigns, processions, and rallies. That is where we are now. Now, in December, political parties are obligated to forward to the Commission the list and personal particulars and photographs of their polling agents or party agents that they are going to deploy to the various polling units, collations, and collation centers on election day. So we have come very far in terms of our preparations. Very soon, we are going to publish the voters register that will be used for the conduct of this particular election. And then we'll get to the critical period of the election period. So in terms of our timetable and schedule of activities, we are doing well with our timetable and schedule.
Talk to us about changes that will take place in next year's elections as far as INEC is concerned.
If you recall, on the 25th of February 2022, the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria assented to the Electoral Act 2022. Now, the Electoral Act 2022 brought in critical and fundamental changes and innovations in the conduct of elections and in the electoral legal framework. Now, part of those changes was to give legal backing and legal muscle to the deployment of technology in the electoral process. So based on that, the Commission will deploy what we call the Bimodal Voter Accreditation System, the BVAS, for purposes of voter accreditation and authentication. It has capacity for fingerprint identification and for facial identification. So under Section 47, subsection 2 of the Electoral Act, the presiding officer shall use that particular device for voter accreditation and authentication. Secondly, under Section 64 of the new Electoral Act, the Commission is mandated and under a legal obligation to transmit polling unit level results into our INEC result viewing portal in real time. And that will also be carried out within this particular period. Moreover, the law also obligates the Commission to invite all the registered political parties to the Commission to come and view their logo as it will appear on the ballot papers on election day. This has already been accomplished, and so no political party can claim exclusion when they have come to assess their logo and other details as it will appear on the ballot paper on election day. And so these are some of the issues we are going to introduce. Very well.
So practically, walk us through what a voter is likely to experience at the polls come February 25th.
Well, all those who have been engaged in identity theft previously, we have no place in the new electoral framework that we have designed. If the beavers cannot read their fingerprints and cannot read their facial, the implication is that you are engaged in identity theft and you will not be allowed to vote. We have retired and buried the incident forms through which people were manipulating the electoral process previously. Secondly, those who are at home, who log onto our website, can see the results as they are coming in from the different polling units in real time. And so it's going to be a completely new and creative and innovative experience.
So Festus, what I'm asking is, if say voter A goes to a polling center, will they experience any changes that they should be aware of now?
We have taken that on board. What the voter should experience is, one, that every registered voter who wants to vote in our election must approach the polling unit with his or her permanent voter's card. If you don't have a permanent voter's card, you cannot be there. Secondly, no voter will be allowed to steal someone's identity. And so if you are not properly registered as a voter in the polling unit and in the registration area where you intend to vote, you should not even go there in the first place. And so the voter will have a very good voting experience on the election day. There won't be any
I'm glad to hear. Now, I want us to talk about voters in hard-to-reach areas because of conflict or natural disasters like floods, as we have seen in Nigeria's recent history. What is INEC doing to make sure that those people are not disenfranchised?
The law makes it mandatory that the Commission must make arrangements for persons who have been displaced from their natural habitat on account of one emergency or the other. So Nigerian voters who have been displaced, either on account of flood or on account of conflict, who are in IDP camps, we are going to recreate their polling units and recreate their registration areas or wards, and they will be in a position to vote on election day. So that's exactly what the law obligates us to do, and we are doing that. Those who have lost their permanent voters' cards, we have reprinted their permanent voters' cards to enable them to exercise their democratic franchise on election day.
What of those in conflict areas?
Well, as of today, we have what we call the Interagency Consultative Committee on Election Security, chaired by the chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission, and the co-chair is the National Security Advisor, and it's made up of all the security heads throughout in the country. We also have an equivalent at the state level. And so what we have done is to hold constant meetings with them, and they have assured us that they have the capacity to degrade all the security challenges we have in different parts of the country to enable people exercise their franchise. But the issues will be dealt on a case-by-case basis. Our electoral officers in the various local governments are harvesting the data relating to where we have challenges and where we don't have challenges. And so we'll be in a position to know whether there are few registration areas or few polling units where we cannot deploy on account of conflict. But we are taking all of them on board and harvesting them and analyzing the data and also sharing information with the security agencies.
But there are those who would argue that if education about changes is not reaching these people now, then it's difficult to convince anyone that the electoral process itself will get there.
I didn't get your point.
No, so I'm saying that there are those who would argue that if elections education, for instance, the changes that have gone on, sensitizing people, has not got to these areas, how sure are we that the voting itself will get there?
No, the issue of electoral education is a continuous process. The commission has offices in the 774 local government areas of Nigeria, and we have electoral officers in all these areas, and we have a full complement of staff in these areas.
I understand, Festus, but what I'm asking is, do you know for sure if these people have actually received any electoral changes, particularly because there will be some differences at the polls this year? I mean next year.
Oh, definitely. It's a continuous thing, and since 2020, the Commission has conducted 105 off-cycle elections using the new technologies that I have enumerated, and we've not had any serious challenge. Before the election, we're also going to carry out what I call mock accreditation in all the states of the Federation and in all the senatorial districts for people to have a feel of the new technologies that will be used. And so we are going to engage in aggressive voter and civic education, and that's exactly what we are doing at present, but we are going to intensify it as the election approaches.
Just one more question for you, then I'll take Charles's thoughts. But let's talk about people with disabilities and, you know, who are a bit challenged and the elections. What provisions is INEC making for them?
For persons with disability, the Commission has been working with them over a period of time. And that work entails harvesting the type of disability we have in various polling units and we have in various registration areas. So we've been working with all the various associations of persons with disability. Not only that, the new law, the Electoral Act 2022, obligates the Commission to also collect data during the registration process of the type of disabilities of those who have come to register. So we're also harvesting them. We are going to deploy what we call the Brave Ballot Guide during the election. We are going to deploy magnifying glasses during the election. We're also going to deploy posters that will explain to people who are deaf on what to experience and how to go about the electoral process on election day. And so, as far as we are concerned, no person who is properly registered, whether the person is a person with disability or not, will be left behind in the electoral process. So we are making efforts for them, and we're also working to make sure that we carry them along during this particular process.
Very well. Now, Festus, my understanding is that you have very little time with us, so let's finish up. One of the things that we want to look at is safety for INEC workers and also for voters. So far, we've seen some attacks on your offices. What has happened since then? Investigations have been going on for a while.
Well, you know, the Commission does not have its own police force, and we don't have our own security agencies. So what we have done is to rely on the various security agencies and to carry out their investigation and also make arrests. We are also concerned about the safety of our workers, but we are convinced that some of the non-sensitive materials that have been lost as a result of this particular challenge can and will be replaced before the election. But if these attacks continue up to the period of the election, it may be very difficult for us to replace some of the items that are being damaged and some of the items that are being lost. The attackers want to more or less distract the Commission, prevent the Commission from focusing, and also may possibly prevent the election from taking place. But this Commission is resolved to go on with the electoral business, because under Section 132, subsection 2 of the Constitution, the conduct of election has been circumscribed. And the moment we move away from that particular window, from that particular radar, nobody can tell what the outcome will be. And so we don't want to throw the country into a constitutional logjam or into a constitutional crisis. And so we are going to move on courageously and assiduously towards 2023, because that's what the Nigerian people expect of us, and that's what the Nigerian people expect us to do.
Indeed. Now, the argument has been that this keeps happening because there is no finality to any of the cases that have taken place. No arrests have been made. No one has been prosecuted for any of the attacks. Now, if the police is not able to give you closure on these things, how sure are we that, look, you're safe and really we can have a safe and secure election?
We are convinced that we have received assurances from the leadership of the various security agencies that we are going to have free, fair, transparent, inclusive, and peaceful election. And we don't have any reason to doubt them. We have had meetings with the various security agencies, and they have assured us that they're going to beef up security around our state offices and also around our local government offices. And that's exactly what they're doing at present. And we don't have any cause to doubt them. But we want the people of this country to be assured that this commission is committed to the conduct of this election, because that is the way to go and that is the democratic thing to do.
In the last two attacks, INEC said it was beefing up security at its offices. What's the latest on that? Because right after that, there was another attack. It would seem that that security is non-existent, Festus.
Well, I am aware that as of today, the security has been beefed up in our state offices, and we have 36 state offices and an office in the Federal Capital Territory. Security has been beefed up in those areas. And we are also urging the various security agencies to also beef up security in our local government offices so that we can deploy non-sensitive materials to these offices. And as the chairman pointed out, we have already deployed 50% of the non-sensitive materials required for this election to these offices. And if the attacks continue, we cannot deploy to the remaining places. And so we are going to continue our synergy and liaison and consultation with the different security agencies to get them to beef up security in our offices, because that's the right thing to do at this point in time. And we are determined that that should be done expeditiously.
Very well. Now, you're in charge of information and voter education. Let's talk about the PVC distribution. Not only did you lose some to the attacks on your offices, but also you plan to begin distribution from December 12th. Talk to us first about the loss that you have experienced and how you're making up for it.
Well, before we give out PVCs to prospective registrants, we normally retain some information relating to those PVCs. So the commission has asked the electoral officers and the resident electoral commissioners in all the places where we have had these attacks to harvest the voter identification numbers or the VIN numbers of all those who lost their PVCs during this particular period, to enable the commission reprint their PVCs and then get the owners of those PVCs to come and collect them. And so in terms of the PVCs that were either burnt or damaged or defaced or lost during this particular period, we have the capacity to reprint these PVCs within a very, very short time.
This must cost the INEC a lot of money, is it not?
Yes, for each item that is lost to some of these arsonists, definitely is the taxpayers' money that has gone up in flames. And nobody wants that, because money should be channeled to other critical sectors of the Nigerian economy, rather than replacing what has already been budgeted for. So we are not happy with this spate of attacks, and we believe that the various communities where these offices are located should also take interest in protecting these offices, because these are national assets. These are critical national assets of the commission, and they belong to the people of this country. Most of the workers that work in some of these local government offices are people who are from the contiguous local governments. And so the moment there's an attack, the implication is that something has happened to the economy of even the people living around those places. And so we don't want these attacks to continue. And so we urge the various communities, the traditional rulers, religious leaders, and community leaders to take interest in protecting the facilities within their jurisdiction, because that is the right thing to do, and that is the best way to go.
Commissioner Okoye, I'm grateful for your time. We have to let you go now. Thank you so much for joining us here on The Square.
I really appreciate this opportunity. Thank you so much.
Indeed. Festus Okoye is Commissioner for Information and Voter Education at the Independent National Electoral Commission of Nigeria. And he's been joining us on events around the elections that will take place on February 25th, 2023 in Nigeria. But the conversation continues because we still have political analyst Charles Thomas on the line with us. We'll find out what he thinks about what he's heard so far. Stay with us here on The Square.
News Central TV, Africa's #1 storyteller, has come with the best of both worlds. With a combination of news app and live TV, we ensure that you keep track of the latest headlines, breaking news, and in-depth analysis from professional journalists from around the continent. Download the News Central TV app on Android and iOS and get started today. Don't forget to follow us on News Central's social media platforms. News Central, Africa First.
Welcome back to The Square. Today we are discussing Nigeria's elections preparedness. If you just joined us, you missed the conversation with INEC's Commissioner for Information and Voter Education. Really insightful conversation there. But be sure to catch back on YouTube a little later from now. But now let's talk to Charles Thomas. He's a political analyst and he's joining our conversation on Nigeria's 2023 election. Charles, first, thank you so much for your patience. You have no idea. I appreciate that so much. But you heard my conversation with Festus, who spoke for INEC. Let's start from where he stopped, the attacks on INEC officers. As an analyst, what assessment have you made about this and why it continues to happen?
Okay, thank you so much for having me. Firstly, I want to say that
Charles, I can barely hear you. If you could speak up for me.
Can you hear me now?
I think so.
Okay. I think firstly, it's an indication that Nigeria is not safe and that nothing is safe in the country. And we keep emphasizing on the need to secure the nation and our national assets also. These kinds
Charles,
of occurrence,
I'm afraid we cannot hear you. Oh.
You can hear me?
I think you need to lose your earpiece so that we can hear you.
Okay, hold on a minute. Is it loud?
Right, you're watching Village Square Africa. Charles is putting his audio together. When we have that audio fixed, we will continue with the conversation. But the reason why we're talking about Nigeria's elections today is because it's barely 2 months away, and we wanted to gauge how INEC is preparing towards it to ensure a free, secure, and fair election. We've had some of the things that Festus has spoken. He's told us that he is convinced that really security will not be a problem as far as the 2023 elections are concerned, despite attacks, 5 of them in the last 4 months on INEC officers across the country. I'll tell you more, but let me try if Charles's audio is better now. Hello, Charles.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
I can hear you, but barely. You might have to increase your audio or something.
Okay, I think I need to just come closer.
You'd have to disconnect your earpiece from your device. Well, while Charles is fixing that, now I was telling you that it's only about 80 days to the elections in Nigeria. The atmosphere is sparkling with campaigns here and there. We've heard from nearly every party in the capital, Lagos. And unlike what it has been in the past, we are seeing a third horse in the race, and hopefully we'll see how that pans out when we hear from Charles. INEC is quite worried about how its officers are being attacked. However, they say that, look, you can be sure that when you go to the centers to vote, you will be safe. Most importantly, my understanding is that Charles's audio is better now. And so let's talk to Charles. Hello, Charles. You're muted, Charles. I can't hear you.
Okay.
I can hear you now. So, Charles, you were telling us what you think about INEC's responses to the attacks on their offices and general security for the elections. Go ahead.
All right, I think you can hear me right now. I've been able to get off the earphone. Then I will start from where Mr. Festus stopped. Firstly, I want to give kudos to the INEC. I think since 1999 up until date, INEC has displayed a high level of preparedness for the 2023 election, which is so important, not just to INEC, but to all the populace and the citizens of the nation itself. On the attacks on national assets, most especially on INEC offices, it's an indication that we still have a lot to do with insecurity in Nigeria. We still have a lot of worries as it concerns the security of life and property in Nigeria. So it gives a lot of fear down the spines of the electorate, down the spines of the people. How sure are they that on the day of election they are going to be safe, and they can also be able to pick up their elections as the case may be?
But why do you think that these attacks...
I'm battling with my network.
No, I can hear you clearly. Why do you think that these attacks continue on INEC offices?
Attack trying to disfranchise certain persons from participating in the election. I think this is calculated. I think this is intentional. And it's not something anyone could say that it's not intentional. It's intentional. It is strategic. You know, right from some part of the nation, some people don't believe in election, especially right here in Southeast. Many are still agitating for a sovereign state. So anything can happen to disfranchise the people and discourage the people from coming out to vote. The idea is to create tension. The idea is to create fear. The idea is also to disfranchise the people. If you do not have your PVC, you cannot vote. If you are having fear in the atmosphere, there's going to be voter apathy. And for that reason, people will not come out on the election day to vote because of the fear of their life and threats that are going to happen. We have seen this happen over the years and then over the past 2 elections. And so we're still expecting that again to happen. But then I am surprised that the security agencies has not taken measures to curb these kind of attacks that have happened simultaneously over the last election.
What measures would you have expected them to take?
I also have to say that INEC still has a lot to do. Right now, you can walk into the banking sector and get your ATM card without necessarily have to stay days and weeks and months. I also encourage that INEC go ahead and adopt such procedure where you can get your PVC instantaneously, if not maybe the same day or maybe instantaneously. So we should be able to adopt, change the patterns and the ideas and the way things are done, with, to be able to get these PVCs all from the offices. We have a large number of the PVCs that is still packed right at INEC offices. In my state, we have a lot of the people are not even picking the PVCs, so to say. So if there are attacks in certain INEC properties, in certain INEC offices where these PVCs are, what is going to happen is, number one, is that many persons in Abia State will be disfranchised. So how long is it going to take INEC to reproduce or mass produce these PVCs again? What if it happens in January? What if it's happening early part of February? So we have to be dynamic in the things we're doing. INEC is going to step up their game a little bit and be able to provide procedures and means where people can be able to get their PVCs without necessarily have to take months, weeks before it comes. I think it's going to curb all of this. Mr. Festus talked about building up security in the 36 states, including FCT. I also think that it's not just the headquarters of INEC that these attacks are happening. Many of the attacks are happening at the rural areas, the villages, the remote places. Many of these attacks are happening in places where probably there's not much security. What are you going to do to such people? What is going to happen to those kind of persons who don't have that opportunity to be able to get their PVCs, reprint them?
Well, we'll hope that Festus's response to that they are doing their best to recover, would actually happen. But as you're telling us, history shows that some people have been disenfranchised as a result of that. I want us to move away from the security because you've been very insightful on that. Let's move on to, reaching hard-to-get areas. I spoke with INEC about that. You had the conversation. They say they are working with your stakeholders in those states, in those areas, to be able to reach people who are hit by conflict and natural disasters like flood. How do you feel about that?
Mr. Festus, okay, I think that if we don't have a mock process, if we don't have things on the ground already, if we're not hitting the ground already, if INEC is not hitting the ground already, there are intentions or there are indications, I beg your pardon, that many persons will be differentiated. The flood came heavy this year, and many persons are in IDP camps. And also, there are security-prone areas where places like Imo State, or more precisely, or some parts of Abia State, and there's some part of Southeast also where there are insecurities and all that. In fact, Anambra is also boiling. So if we don't have the proper things on ground already, I'm yet to see what INEC is doing. I'm speaking from the field now. I don't know what they're doing about the office. But on ground, we are not seeing that happen already. We are not seeing that already happening. So I think that INEC have a lot of job to do, a lot of work to do, to be able to recreate polling units right at IDPs. How do you now identify these polling units? And how do you identify these IDPs? It becomes a problem because every Nigerian deserves to vote. Every Nigerian wants to vote. Of course, is moving away, like you said, from the two-horse race. Will not have a third force in the election. So they have a lot to do because there might be need for an extension of elections and some other things happening. I just think that INEC need to do a lot more than just what they're just saying on papers and what they're doing at the office. Because for now, I don't see a lot of that on ground.
So I want to find out from you, what can these political parties do, in assisting with making sure that their people are not doing what they are not supposed to do? They must have a role in this, shouldn't they?
Parties have roles to play, especially the not too known political parties. Of course, we have the Labour Party and then the SDPs and the NNPP and all that. I think they have a lot of sensitization, a lot of orientation and reorientation. Our people need to be taught and taught again the reason why we have to safeguard these offices, the INEC offices, and the importance of our vote, the importance of voting, the importance of coming out to vote, and the reason why we need to get our PVC. In fact, I've been trying to talk to people to go ahead and collect their PVCs and keep their PVC. For me, my PVC is like an asset to me. I don't even move around with it. So I don't end up any day maybe misplacing it or something. So I think the political parties have roles to play. During their campaigns, they should talk to their followers. They should talk to their supporters on the need to be on guard. Watch INEC offices. Report information, news, report anything that they see at all that can be able to jeopardize the election itself. You shouldn't leave everything to the police. The truth is that the police needs the people, the populace, the citizens to be able to carry their work effectively. There must be a synergy between the police and the people. While we are talking to the political parties, I also think that the police themselves also should build more relationship with the people and create an avenue where the people can trust the police to bring information to them and their safety guaranteed. Because I have seen people who went to report to police incidents of theft, death, or whatever, they were detained, and they were said to be the first suspect or thereabout. So it creates fear amongst people to even speak. And some others have also complained, you bring information to the police, allegedly, the police goes ahead to unmatch your identity to probably these hoodlums and the rest of it. So your security, we need to be reassured that if I'm bringing information to the police, that my safety is guaranteed. And at that, we can be able to start working with the police to bring information to them So the political parties should know that if this thing happens, it can even go back to the normal old way or the things that are happening already. So they should be able to use their means, use their power, and go ahead and then sensitize their people.
Very well. Now, this is a subject that we couldn't bring up with Festus because of time. But there have been recent calls for the inclusion of photographs of candidates on the ballot paper. Now, Charles, tell me what you think about these calls. Are they necessary? Why are they, or otherwise?
Right now, in the way the campaigns, the elections going in our nation, we find out that the people are no longer voting political parties. In fact, I can assure you that the people will not vote political party come 2023. The people are more going to vote on individual based on competence, based on capacity, not necessarily the way it used to be from top to bottom, voting a particular political party. So someone could choose to vote for PDP for presidency and then choose to vote for maybe APC at state level, and then choose to vote for Labour Party for Senate, right? For example, in my own, and then choose to vote for SDP for State House of Assembly. Now, the problem is this. It creates issues amongst the people. I know there's a joint ticket. I understand the laws of the land. But who we are voting for is individuals. I think it will go a long way to keep the picture and the memories of who they want to vote for. Just like I've said before now, the truth is that many people don't even know the logos of certain political parties, but they know the individuals running for those political offices. So how do they identify these individuals? So I think attaching the photograph of these candidates is going to help the people in selecting the persons that they want to vote for and the people that they want to lead them.
Someone would say that it might be a little too late now, considering the stage at which INEC is. But, I mean, we'll see how that plays out. But finally, I want you to talk to the political leaders, the candidates, especially those at the top, those who are most popular. They are as significant to the process as they are to the security of the process. Talk to us about how they should be speaking to their people.
Tribalism, religion. Nigeria is grossly divided by tribalism and religion. And I think one of the things we need to hear from the frontline contenders right now is their preparedness, not what they will do for the people, or how they intend to do it. We should move away from personal attack, move away from insult, move away from tribalism, like I said before, and do issue-based campaign. Nigeria is sitting on a time bomb. We need to vote people who can be able to move us from the point we are to a higher point. So it's not time to insult tribes. It's not time to insult religion. It's not also time to insult people. It's time to come and tell us what you are going to do, and very importantly, how you intend to do that.
And how do you see them so far doing all of these things that you've spoken about?
Remember.
Charles, can you hear me? How do you see them performing now?
For now, I think they already hit on the politics. Name calling. The other day we heard the candidate of the All Progressive Congress speak derogatory about the PDP candidate and, of course, the Labour Party candidate also. In fact, he said, you're not so far as an insult to mention Peter Obi before him. And also asked why Atiku Abubakar is running, would you keep running and all that. I think, first of all, those things are not necessary. We also see all that in one of the states, I think, I've done mistake like Ekiti or thereabout, where he said that the Labour Party guys are going to labor and they labor in vain until they die or something. All of that are not necessary. They're already throwing the punch, including the Labour Party presidential candidate softly also is throwing punch at his opponent. I think at this point, we don't need that for Nigeria. Because at the end of these elections, we are still Nigerians and we remain Nigerians.
Right. Thank you so much, Charles. Charles Thomas is a political analyst. He joined us on the subject of Nigeria's 2023 elections. I appreciate your time, Charles.